Good afternoon. Welcome to the Arts Alive online virtual program, which has started from September, ending the 30th of December 2020. This is a platform that is celebrating all forms of arts within music, film, dance, contemporary art, fashion, foods, culture, all kinds of celebrations supported by the City of Johannesburg. And on the film online masterclasses, the program is hosted by the Gauteng Film Commission. And today I'm going to be your host, Ntabileng Pora from the Gauteng Film Commission. And with me today, which is very great to have a rose amongst thorns. And my thorns are Deleza Mwabi, Fani Tsumong, as well as Kalumbu Kapisa. Gentlemen, welcome. And I would like for you to just share a quick introduction of yourself. So without me misrepresenting you and who you are and the projects that you've worked on, and then we can begin our session. Deleza?
Hello, my name is Deleza Mwabi. I saw the flyer says film director, but I like to consider myself a storyteller. And the reason is that like I've played more than one role as far as like filmmaking is concerned, and I think for me, storytelling goes a long way. It's bigger than the same film director. And for that reason, I've tried to tell so many stories, like South African stories. I think just for the purpose of today, more specifically, music documentaries. So you can even consider myself a music documentary director or music documentary filmmaker. So that's me.
Fanny?
Yes, my name is Fani Tsimung. I'm also a director, creative content producer as well. I'm basically vast in this industry because I tap into different spaces. It could be music, it could be documentaries and film. Yeah, it's all about being creative. So my work is more about being creative, trying to come with new ideas, and also collaborating with other people. So that's what I really love to do in the industry. So I work for Doti Productions as well, co-owner of Doti Productions, and also working hand in hand with Mr. Mwabi.
Oh, thank you so much. Mr. Kapisa?
Thank you for having me this afternoon. My name is Kalumbu Kapisa. I'm a filmmaker, but I think that title expands more to just making films. I think I'm in a position where we actually make things happen, because other than just making films, I'm most sort of like cultural preservist in a way. So I'm involved in the creative space, whether it's curating, whether it's through music, whether it's a film. And then, so I just wear so many hats in producing, directing. I mainly direct dramas, do commercials. I've done a couple of documentaries as well. So I'm all around making things happen in the cultural space, So yeah, we get it done. And I think that's the position that I play. That's who I am. And I'm glad to be here to talk about film and music and how it impacts on cultural practices, especially this day and age.
Cool. So gentlemen, there has been this a new appetite and a new need, if not also a gap, of what has been absent in terms of music documentary. What prompted the need to begin this journey of creating documentary music, and what are we hoping to really get out of documenting and preserving what you've been working on? And I think maybe you can also, whilst you are also responding to that, just also highlight some of the programs that you are working on that are currently your music documentary programs and projects. Kapisa?
I think culture is more than fashion, culture is more than just people celebrating it on a Heritage Day. I think culture is something that we need to live for every day through our languages, our foods, our music, the kind of content that we get exposed to, so that we preserve it and it remains us. So having grown up through just the different times of what South Africa has gone through, from the 80s, from the freedom fighters to the 90s of our independence, to now in the 2000s, to the new generation, the Kwaitos, and so forth. I think there's so much culture, so much transformation, so much stuff that we've actually gone through. So because we're there in the time, I think it's only right that we are the custodians of that. We need to preserve that. And it's very fortunate that we're able to tell first-hand stories because of our knowledge. So we don't read this from books or history books of what happened. This is first-hand information because we're there. So we documenting it and that's preserving our culture. So I think it's important that only those who have lived the story can tell the story to pass on to new generations, and they can know the truth of what really happened because we're telling it from a first-hand experience. So I think it's really important that we are the storytellers. We have that duty to preserve our culture and heritage by telling those stories.
I think that was a good one. Fanny, can you just go into the musical documentary that you've been working on, but also the experience of what you've been working on in the past that also prompted the continuation of preserving of culture and the arts, as Kalubu just alluded?
Yeah, I mean, like from the late 90s, actually, when I was introduced in the music industry, I've seen there was a lack of documenting artists. So a lot of people, they never had that opportunity to document the performances or the artists. And I work with so many artists where, like, when you need their archive or anything to do with them, it's hard to get anything. So I think that idea of creating my culture, my music, it started from there where I wanted to kind of like follow different artists, but not only artists, but to follow the indigenous artists and to tell their stories through visuals. Because when you look around South Africa, we don't have South African Music Museum. We don't have anything that showcase our artists in any form. You only see them on stages or you see them on television, and there's no books that can talk about our artists. There's nothing that can say these artists, they were there before. I mean, like if you look back to your Brenda Fassie stories or your Miriam Makebas, it's only your BBC and Americans who had that opportunity to kind of like create content around them. And then as South Africans, so it's very hard for us to go and outsource that footage. So creating my culture, my music was like a form to say, we South Africans, we have so much stories that we can talk about or to tell, but we didn't have the capacity. I don't know if we didn't have capacity before, or maybe we're like a little bit lazy. But now, because everyone has an access to cameras, you find you have smartphones and can be able to capture all those moments.
Okay, Dill?
Yeah, I think for me, I just want to go back a little bit. I tend to talk far too long, but I'll try to keep it brief. I think for me, it's personal. Just doing music documentaries, more specifically South African music documentaries. And it's personal because it was never a plan. It's not like I saw a gap or things along those lines. But this is just one level of many things, besides heritage, besides documenting, besides preservation, which are all part of what we do. For me, I never, this might sound too pompous, but I never had a role model growing up, like literally. I never had a role model until I met, in general, a South African musician. And to cut a long story short, coming from a small town, I don't know, like a whole lot of other things that occupies you. Least of them is like arts and culture or entertainment. Like you don't worry about those things. So you don't think about, you don't see anything that inspires you to be anything more than what you're being told you can be. So when I moved to Joburg, which is one of the big cities here, I got to experience firsthand the story of South African musicians. And for me, the story of South African musicians is the story of Black people. And Black people by nature and by history are sort of like underdogs. We've been kind of like able to achieve a whole lot of things that the environment was designed to stifle us down so that we don't succeed. And just, I mean, there's so many genres, but just in hip hop in particular, if you were just to go back to 95, 1990, for those who were not there and the younger generation, I always say, like, if you were there, nobody would have said South African hip hop would be where it is today. Now, if you were there to experience the story, for me, it's nothing but the story of the underdog that overcomes the most challenging hurdles ever. Only not overcome, but it actually succeed. And that cuts across all genres, the first, one of the first TV series that I did was Sisters of Soul, and this is like around 2005 or so. And the idea was just try to document, the heritage that is South African soul from a point of view of the likes of Tandy, so the likes of Simpure Dana. Today we have the Amanda Blacks. But if you go before that, you can go back to the 50s and 60s. You had your Mom Mira Makeva and Abigail Kubeka. The list go on. And for me, that's the story, the lineage that's been going on for far too long. So if you look at these sisters that we had today, they paint a very rich story of who we are. So, and that story goes beyond what they sound like or the beautiful music that they produce, which is why I say it's the story of the underdog. And for me, that's where I found my role model. So when I do these music documentaries, one element that I always hope is that the audience can get out of is what I got out of it. But I don't think I'd be standing here today doing this seminar if it wasn't for a South African musician. And from that point of view, for me, it's important that I use every single resource that I have, which I've done to try and like document and tell the story. Because amongst other things, I hope that when young South Africans watches those stories, could discover something about themselves that they can take them to the next level. So for me, South African musicians have played the same or similar role as like musicians. We spend a lot of time, which is a good thing, celebrating politicians and the story of apartheid and the struggle, and we give those people props and how much they fought for us and brought us where we are. But I don't think that would have happened without the soundtrack that accompanied that struggle. It's hard for me to separate the two. So I do, every time I pick up a camera, it's with the hope that it could have an impact on 1, 2, 3, or 20 young South Africans to know how great we are as people and as individuals beyond just like celebrating that music. So that's my motivation, which, like I said in the beginning, it makes it very personal for me every time I try to tell a story of any genre whatsoever.
So I think what is interesting with this session is that there is so much diversity, and with your individual experiences, the different genres which you have worked on. I know, Deleuze, that outside of hip hop, you do a lot of jazz documenting. Fanny, I know you do a lot of pop African pop documenting. Kalumba, I know you've been doing a lot of hip hop and legendary ancestry work. Please take us through the importance of ancestry callings that have now shown, that have found shape rather within the music industries. You know, you have people. The legend which I will refer to is Mebu Simhlong. She was a sangoma, but also she used music to deliver message of ancestry. And I know, Kalum, currently you are working on that project. Please take us through that project, but also give us the importance of how that music has now resonated to South Africans by using music ancestry to still relay messages, but also to be a form of entertainment outside of just the messaging that comes with it.
The show we're working on, it was a 3-part documentary series commissioned by the SABC. It's called Badimo. It's currently playing on SABC 2 right now. So in the brief, I remember they wanted to find the connection between the ancestral world and then using artistry as a vessel to convey the message onto the audience, you know? Because for the longest time, you find artists like Fela Kuti will be on stage and he just goes into a trance and he doesn't understand why he was in a trance, you know? You find sometimes Duduzo Makatini is on stage and then he just goes crazy on the piano, but he can't remember even the notes that he played because there's this thing that that comes to him, inspires him to actually play the music, you know. So in most cases, we're examining those kind of factors to say how are the people that has access to Idlozi, so Idlozi speaks to them, to be able to convey the message to the general masses. And all along while that you're filming this, I found the similarities, a connection to say, we as artists, we as filmmakers, I think that's the role that we play too, is to be able to take the message and so we can connect between different worlds and the viewers. So the viewers becomes the platform that we can relate the kind of messages that we're actually taking through. So we've been profiling some of the legendary people like your Blondie, Makene, Duduzo Makatini, you know, and then just sort of like sharing their journeys to say how, so even like for them, how they see it is the message is not about them. They are just the vessels of the message of Idlozi onto the people. So it's not even in their job to say, I'm healing you through whatever I'm giving you, but it is your medicine, it is your tool to say, I'm giving it to you. What you do with it is up to you. You actually see to finish. And I think for the longest time, we haven't been able to find like a proper narrative, a proper language to actually tell it, because it's that unexplained, unseen, unspoken kind of a word, you know. So how do you capture that and be able to translate that into like a narrative that it makes sense that people, the audience can respond and actually relate to? So that's been the journey so far that I've been doing.
Fanny, I know you've done your work with is it BCUC and my favorite group, Urban Village, and they do a same ancestry music. How is that for them, and how do you see their genre going into what we are discussing right now, but also the how is it also received, because there's so much South Africans warming up to the music, understanding the music, but also I think it resonates to who we are as Africans. And how do you see that from your point of view?
I think the guys is how it works, but the compilers are the one who makes decisions to say we want to use this platform. Yes, D?
Yeah, finish. I just wanted to
Okay.
add what.
Okay, yeah. So
Oh,
they're the one who kind of decide for us to what we should listen to. And it becomes very difficult because when you listen to any radio stations, it's very hard for you to listen to or to get Matrakunene playing or Matosini. And that it kind of kills the industry because we've been fed of something that we don't really like. Not everyone loves amapiano or hip hop, whatever. So we have we still have to have a choice to listen to certain things, but SABC, they have their own mandate. Kaya FM has their own mandate. Your YFM, they have their own mandate. So it's difficult for them to crack it in the industry. However, they do big internationally, and which is sad because they are being recognized far, far away from home, where we're supposed to embrace them and nourish them and promote them and support them.
yeah.
Still?
If I can add into, I just add one funny say, but even like it speaks to the series or the artists that Colombo mentioned in the series that he did. I did a series called Hanging with a Band, which includes a lot of those bands, like your Blackjacks, 340 million. And we're talking about 8, 10 years back. Um, that series hasn't seen the light of day, right? But we shot it. We use our own money, use our own resources to shoot it because, like I said, for us, for me, and sometimes people that I work with, the motivation is very personal. And especially when it comes to this particular sound of your BCUC, Urban Village, and the likes. But I think the challenge for me with them, having been the privilege with working with so many artists at the beginning of their career and to see them flourish, is that they really don't have the sort of like the business or the management aspect of it because they're creatives and they should just be creatives. I had the privilege of doing a series called Vuma. And what you learn from that story of Kalawa, of Kwaito told through Kalawa record label was that like for Kwaito to get to a level that he did, it took a lot of people to get it to that level. And those people, fortunately, unfortunately, were not just musicians, you know. Somebody like Oskido, we celebrate him as a great artist, which he is. But for me, my experience of having spent time with him on the road and the people that he worked with, he was more of a business person more than anything, in a sense that before Kwaito could be on radio, they were not even promoters booking Kwaito artists. And these guys had to go out and organize their own concert, you know. And after organizing their own concert, they realized they're never gonna go as far as without commercial radio airplay. And I think the only time Kwaito filtered into mainstream radio was when people who were into Kwaito and listening to Kwaito happened to be radio DJs. And that extends to house music as well. I was interviewing Lindaran Cheese and we are talking about this, and he said to me, don't forget that there was a time where we used to call house music international, and it used to play on radio at like 9 o'clock or 12 o'clock midnight on a Friday, and that was it. But at the moment, you will never remember that time because house plays from morning until late. So with this sort of like sound that we're talking about of your BCUCs, urban village, or
Yes.
even like inspiration of somebody like the Duzo Makatini, we can't ask them to play more than a role that they have of being creative, of being vessel, as Columbus said it. Until the time where we can find people on those different spaces. With with us here, we're talking about television, and we've done everything within our power to say, okay, whether there's a sponsor funding or whatnot, we know that you're positioned around a seat at the table, and we're gonna do everything within our power to get there. I remember when I first pitched a series on soul music, it was at the height of SABC One. It was at the height of Kwaito, and I was asked, one of the panel members asked me like, but why can't you just make a series about um, house music? Why do you want to make a series about soul artists? Because nobody's listening to soul. But for me, nobody's gonna listen to soul until the filmmakers, until the playlists, until the radio DJs, until the newspaper people write about this. It's never gonna happen until. Uh, for me, it's like the argument that people don't are not into that sound. I really never agreed with that because today we have somebody like Samson Soweto, who's one of the biggest artists we've ever seen. There was a time where when he was doing the soil, nobody was trying to listen to it. Nobody was listening to the soil until the soil landed at native rhythms who had a platform and the muscle to put them out there. And I can tell you now, we will never know differently, but I don't think they never landed on that platform of native rhythm with all the muscle and the platform that they have. I don't think we would have known about this. I knew them before that. I was shooting them before that. You know, as a matter of fact,
but I think, Dils, just to cut you there, I know that one of the problems that we have, and yes, you're correct that as filmmakers, it's our responsibility to start documenting such work so that by the time needed, one is available. But also, and even having to get stuck in a foreign country and be sick and whatever else that happens, and only then everybody is beginning to rush to the Madosini a hype. And I think it's sad because I mean we've had Tate Blondi, who has done so much work in musical ancestry, and is still never celebrated, and still not celebrated till this day. And it is correct to say that, you know, everybody will have to do what they have to do, and that's really where we could live it at. But what I want to understand in South, one, on the talent that they have, two, on just celebrating them as part of preserving South African heritage, because the country's heritage is made out of things that consist of the country through music, whether it's clothing, whether it's food, whether it's cultures themselves, on how we relate on African narratives, whether it's on the things that make us Africans or humans, as it may be. Why is it that we are neglecting South African heritage in its entirety? I know there was a longest time when we were making an argument to say even rooibos is not even recognized or registered on IP that it is a South African brand, until maybe someone will come from somewhere and take rooibos and then we'll be complaining. Why is it that we are not preserving South African culture in all these streams that I've just highlighted?
If I could just like do a party shot, then you can take off because it continues with what I just said last.
Yeah.
I think for me, you know, today we have the United States of America as the biggest cultural export. You can say hip hop or pop music or Hollywood is not culture as we know it, but that's their culture. And they manage to spread it across the world. So for me, it's gonna come from the top. It doesn't start from the bottom. It starts with people in positions, with people who have resources, with people who are willing to fight to get to that level where we can celebrate and document our heritage in its full form. It's not gonna be the people who exude that heritage, whether the musicians or you get my, so some of us have been like whatever modernized. So those people, they only know what to do, what they can do. They can sing, they can do all the cultural things, whichever way we look at. But it's gonna take somebody else to put it out there to the rest of the world. I'll make a simple example. We have Back to the City today, right? As one example, as one of the biggest hip hop concert in the continent. if you go back 14 years where it started, 14, 15 years when it started, I think if anybody told Osmic and Dominic, like, who's gonna come, why you guys are doing this, we wouldn't have the biggest hip hop in the continent today. Bear in mind that those two people were hip hop practitioners, whether they're rapping, they had to stop rapping and doing graffiti and what they do to become organizers so that that concert could happen. So we're filmmakers here. We're gonna need, you've already, this platform as it is, but what you guys have put together, you playing your part. But we're gonna need those people sitting at the radio station. We're gonna need those people sitting at TV station. You know, final comment Sundays. I always say, like, I've written, there's a script that I'm working on. I feel like I can visually, one thing about Sunday is like I can visually portray Sunday on television, so without saying Sunday is Sunday, by just the sound that you hear, you can switch to every radio station, every street. In South Africa on a Sunday, you know it's Sunday. You don't have to ask anybody what time of the week, what day of the week it is. But that's because of what we made it, right? People who are in charge. Those artists who are singing through those radio stations, same song, different song, and every kind of, are nowhere near here. They're far away. We did that, and we can do that, you know. And then they will play one song that says local hit or whatever, like, and then it's like South African R&B song. And I said, like, and then when you put the argument, why are you doing that? Then you're gonna get told that no, people wanna listen to the OJs and the Temptation, which they do. But I'm like, if you're gonna help South African R&B and soul artists to be on this Sunday slot, it's not gonna happen by playing one song. You're gonna have to give them 3-4 hours that you're probably gonna have to play for the whole year until you build an audience. You're not gonna start. No, even like with music, that's why I say, like, I love musicians because they inspire me so much. No musician started with 1 million listeners. They have to do it over and over and over and over again until one day there's 10,000, 100,000. So the radio station, the TV channels, everybody will have to do that repetition until one day it's just like a subconscious thing that we just do.
No.
True
that.
Fanny, you are going in there?
No, actually, I wanted to actually what Lisa said, I was going to go through it for, like, it has to start from the top. You know, people who hold position is supposed to make sure we build visibility around our indigenous artists. You know, they have to build platforms. I mean, we need balance. If you go for Friday music programs on television, everything is young, it's hip and all that. We know that it's Friday. However, if you go back in history, like Bola Poloha, they used to kind of like mix both cinema tunes. They used to mix genres. It was not only a specific genre that was playing on that day, but they'll make sure which they bring Brenda Fassie, they bring Bumshaka, they'll bring like Busim Klongo in one program. So recently, everything is about new wave sound. So if you're not new wave, you're being neglected. So you've been sidelined as well. So also, building the audience, they need to feed us that sound so we can be able to get used to it. So if they don't play Sanka Experience or Urban Village or Simpuetan on radio stations, no one will care about that sound. You know, we'll always go back to the American sound. Like Lisa said, when it's Sunday, you already know. You listen to the same artist throughout radio stations. And I think we need we need a balance between music compilers to understand the different genres of music, and they can be able to cater for everyone, including South African content.
But you know, I think even just like adding on to that is to say, who sets the agenda? You know, because right now, across the radio, it's about the top 50 of the world. I mean, the top 50 Billboard. You know, all the radio stations, from your public broadcasting radio to even the private ones, your Kayas and so on. It's who sets the agenda, or what music do you listen to? So I think it needs to be a conscious, deliberate decision where we say we need to make we need to make our indigenous music cool. We need to make our indigenous arts cool. We need to enforce them. It starts with legislation, I think, to say, why are we not putting this in schools? Why are we not enforcing the broadcasters to say you need to play? It's not, but they play it as a special program. If they play Mduduzo Makatini, it's like on a Thursday night at 11 o'clock at night. So why aren't you playing that during the day at 7 o'clock in the morning? Because I would like to listen to that on my way to school or dropping off kids. So I think we need to start making our indigenous artistry, we need to make them cool again so that we don't show them as a special occasion. Coming back to the point that why is Sunday a day of jazz? Why can't you play jazz any other day during the week? Why aren't you putting this curriculum in schools? And I think we also need to increase in our public music performances. I think now with this COVID has also pushed us back. There's no more live venues, live events. I think the kind of live events was a better platform to expose new sounds, new artists. So now is, where do you go? Where do you go if you want to listen to, if there's no more bassline, there's no more your what's the name?
Hora Cafe.
The horror cafes, So where do you go for new sounds? where do you go for new sounds now?
Don't expose my age.
About untitled basement, all those kind of vibes. So the thing is now, where do you go for new sounds? Where do you go to experience something new, even in the townships or in the rural areas and so forth? So I think that's what's lacking. We need to be deliberate with our decisions to say this is, we need to make our art cool. We need to make ourselves cool. So it shouldn't be a problem me playing Brenda Fassie or Busum Tongo at 8 o'clock in the morning on Metro FM, but they only played once in a while on a Heritage Day, or they played what other on June 16 or whatever. We should make it a deliberate decision to say, let's make our art cool. I think it's the only way we're going to progress as a people.
And
I agree with you.
Sorry, and I was just saying,
no,
these artists are more professional than anyone or any genre. If you're looking into Duduzo, like how he presents himself on stage, how he looks, he's an artist. If you look into other genres, they just rock up and like they be like, and for us to make our music to be more cooler, it starts with the record labels as well. It starts with everyone who pushes the envelope, because I strongly believe that mainstream record labels, they take us as like a CSI project. South Africa is a CSI project to have those artists, and then they push their Beyoncés, or they feed us their Beyoncés and all that into us, while we're forgetting our own artists in South Africa.
So, somebody's asking a question. I'm sorry, Deleza. Somebody's asking a question to say where it's Bongindaba. So as and when I'm looking on the side, please guys don't say I'm not giving you attention, but I'm reading all the comments from my listeners. So Bongindaba is asking, where do I find my music, my culture, and where do I find the documentary which Deleza mentioned? So can you where are these documentaries available? Because I think one of the important things that we really need to get into when we are having this conversation is understanding that there is a lack of accessibility in the work that we have done in this platform today. But where do we then offer people an alternative platform where they can still be able to watch this? Because one of the things that is the biggest challenge and the biggest problem that needs addressing is that there is so much content, but there's limited distribution platforms.
True.
Yeah. So where do we have these alternatives? Because we can't always complain about the SABC, and I don't want us to get into that vibe, because it's not going to help anyway. So we can't be complaining that SABC is not giving us but then these documentaries, we are owning the IP. So it means we also have an equal responsibility to then have them at these platforms, and audiences want to know, where do we find a documentary? Deliza, you are not going to go on forever. Where do people watch your documentary? Where do they find it? And Fanny, where are these documentaries?
First of all, me personally, I'm not even gonna complain about SABC because I love them because the documentary that I'm talking about, they were the people who commissioned the very same story. So I think for me, my complaint about SABC has never been like they're doing anything negative, but it's just that I feel like they could do more. And I'm saying this because if you want to talk about documentaries, they're the only platform, only broadcast in this country that gives platforms to documentaries. And I tend to be corrected. So let's give them credit where credit is due.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Where my fight, and this is not a criticism, this is my fight, and they know it because they sitting with it there. Hopefully they will come up with a positive answer. Is that like it's exactly what you're asking? It's like I believe personally when it comes to music, okay, music documentaries need to be treated differently. In a sense that people listen to music every day. A person can listen to one song 20 times on repeat or the whole day, depending on how much they like that song. My argument has always been like, first of all, documentary is a very short form. It's not a soapy. It's not a magazine show. It's not a drama. It's like the black sheep of all the film discipline, if you like, because it has this aura that, it's so serious. I need entertainment. But music documentary in particular are different. So my argument was always been with the channels that like, with the music documentary, we have so much opportunity to repeat that so many times. Because it's not like the other content. I put my neck on the line. I doubt you have audience complaints saying like how they're repeating this thing again. If anything, those moments when my commission documentaries that I've done have been repeated, I get calls from people say like, wow, we saw your documentary on TV, and I'd be like, but it played like last year. Now it's playing again. And
so let's come back. Let's not lose focus. Let's not lose focus. Let's come back. Let's come back, Deliza. Where do people watch this documentary? Where do they find a documentary? And follow that up quickly, Fanny, into it so that we can move to other things.
Nowhere, because it's on TV. I don't own it.
Just to answer that, some of the stuff it's available on YouTube. Brothers and Sisters with Soul is available on YouTube as well. You can just go and check the season there. My culture, my music is still doing rounds in film festival. So once it's done, then we're gonna upload it because we cannot wait for the podcasters to buy into our content. But there's a promise from Showmax and an SABC one. So be on the lookout.
Okay. So Deliza's Brothers and Sisters is on YouTube.
For me, that's a okay, Colombo. Okay, before I go, can I come back to that point? We got a long way to go, people.
We do, but we equally need to be clear in what we are also trying to message. No, and we must be progressive. We must be progressive. Kalumbo?
I think this conversation cannot be spoken in isolation to the context of how the industry is shaped and actually organized, right? So there's work you can do with the broadcaster where they actually pay for content, and then the content exists with the broadcaster. And then there is work that because it's almost like our duty to say we want to do passion projects. I'll call them passion projects because you have a point to prove or something that you want to say, but it might not have been a commission content per se, So the biggest challenge has been that you creating content which is not generating income, but you're doing it for passion, to hoping to educate and be able to create awareness. So that's the kind of content that you find either on your YouTube channels or in the shelves of whatever that you have. This will be individual kind of project. And then the kind of commercial content, I'll call it commercial because the broadcasters saw it fitting to fund it, to actually get it done. You know, so you find this kind of content on the broadcaster's platform. So right now, but I think the tide is changing where you can we're taking risk to say, I will create this content with my own money, with my own resources. I'm gonna go on, and then you spend like a good 5 years trying to get license deals with different broadcasters. By the time you even get a license deal, the relevance and the time frames, things has moved on. I mean, case in example, if you speak to Vincent Molloy with his documentary, it took like forever. I think like a good, probably about 5 years. You know, after he's finished shooting, begging SABC. So by the time of conception and then finishing, you kind of just shelving this project until someone actually picks it up. So it's a very tricky conversation of saying, where do you find this content? It's based on I think we're still trying to figure out that kind of platform to say, what kind of platform do we put this content that is not being commissioned, but is for cultural preservation and passion projects, and it sits here other than just being on YouTube?
So Kalungu, you said that, sorry, Kalungu, you said that Badimu is on SABC2.
SABC2, yes.
Which day and what time?
It plays on Sunday afternoons at 4 p.m.
What episode are you on?
So Badimu.
But you see, even that, not to bash SABC, but they're putting documentaries that's on Sunday at 4 p.m. So we're competing with sports. We're competing with Man U and Arsenal, like playing. You know what I mean? So it's also about, as much as they're giving us a space, they're commissioning it, but no one cares about it. You know, I hope I don't get in trouble. You know, it's why are we not on prime time? You know what I mean? Like, they give you a 4 p.m. time slot. So those are the kind of questions. It says, why 4 p.m. when you can give us 7 p.m. with carte blanche, and then we can go head to head because it's current, it's relevant, and it's engaging and it's entertaining. You know, but they're like, we commission you, but stay there at 4 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon. So there's no, it's very careless from, like, I think from the part, you know.
I'm glad you said that, Kalum, because I was gonna say you're not answering the question. Because the truth is, like, to answer that question, nowhere. You can't see it anywhere. Okay? Because the only place you can see it is on TV. And if you missed it, it's gone. I did a series. Let me paint a picture. I did a series on these new wave rappers, right? And I was told that it's never gonna work on TV. And just to tell you a funny story, most of these young artists, when you call them and they're like, where is this gonna be? You're like, on SABC1. They didn't believe it. Okay? And we can get into why they didn't believe it. It's simple, because they don't think SABC is a platform for them. And simply because nobody has put them the way they put themselves on social media. They think social media is a place. Cut a long story short, the show was on TV, and most of them, the channel was happy with the numbers, but even the artists were more happy because some of them told me straight up, like, they didn't think that they could get a response that they got from TV, right? These are people who are literally on social media. They know all the platforms. They use them all the time. But after the show or their episodes were on TV and they featured on SABC1, they were happy with that platform more than they've been. Some of them got new jobs based on them being on TV. So for me, that's another chapter that needs to be dealt with, because I have like hundreds of hours of Columbus Speaks About Passion, of music documentary series that I shot over 15 years. They're sitting on my hard drive, right? The problem is, where do you put? And for me, I've been criticized quite a lot by my colleagues, but I'm not ready to work so hard and put my whole music documentary on YouTube. Music videos, that's the place for YouTube. But I don't know what the politics or what the issues are for somebody to watch a 5-part, 6-hour documentary series on YouTube in this country. I think at this point it's a bit unreasonable, right? So that's why for me it's like until we can get to that point where I can upload my documentary or documentaries on YouTube, and I know people would have time and money to watch it, then I'll do so. But at the at the at, at the current time, I rather chase after the broadcaster and try to twist their arms because they have immediate access. And who said I shouldn't have that? They have immediate access to an audience at any given time. SABC in particular, you're looking at about 2 to 5 million viewers all at the same time that you can have, you know. And we gotta fight for that. Just a final point before I go on for too long. To go back for me, that's something that we're gonna have to address. Otherwise, we're gonna have another seminar like this next year, okay? Because when they started MTV in 1980, they were told it's never gonna work, but they did it anyway. But it was people with money who could facilitate that process. Then pop and rock blew up. 4 years later, 1984, when they tried to put hip hop, they were told it's never gonna work. But they did it anyway. They put hip hop on TV. So we can mobilize on that. All that me, Fanny Colombo, and the rest of all the other kids that Fanny's talking about, running around, documenting culture, shooting musicians, and all that. That's all we can do. You know, I've got no intentions of trying to run a TV channel or radio station one day, none whatsoever. But those people will have to meet people like us halfway. They have to meet the musician halfway. They have to meet cultural activists halfway. You know, funny talking about the record labels. I don't blame record labels that much. I think what we have right now, and I'm not passing blame on anybody.
I think cultural activism. So I'm saying cultural activism means many things to many people because, I mean, by virtue of documenting cultural preservation of, in this instance, musical documentaries, is on its own a movement of cultural activism. And unfortunately, you know, activism is something, if I may call it that you are not doing it for the money at the time when you are doing it because of the importance of the activism that is within all of us. And I think I need to congratulate you on that one, to say, yes, all these other things are a problem, all these other platforms are a problem, but by virtue of taking your time and resources and saying there is a need to document this and there is a need to preserve this, may not be seen now, but one day it will bear fruit. And it may not be financial, but it may be that one caption that you have could be what the country can resonate with at the time when that piece of content is mostly needed. And I think that's important, and we cannot lose that. And I think that's what makes us we are playing our part in playing the role of citizen thing that we may be. So my follow-up question is that, is music documentaries, how has it been received? Those that have seen the platforms, in whichever platforms that are there, how is the acceptance from audiences? Is the acceptance, is it more drive? How are you seeing that, Fanny?
Personal mentor is being well received. Some people, they didn't know Uma Tosini. Some people, they didn't know Isanka experience. Some people, they were not exposed to Urban Village. Some people were not exposed to Matalakulen, and when they hear the sound, when they hear their music and their personal journeys, they're so mind blown to how did I manage to get those legends? You know, I mean, it was, for me personally, it was difficult to kind of secure interviews with them because they have their different managers, white managers, who there's so much red tape for me to kind of carry on to do the documentary. But throughout, when you showcase the documentary in different spaces, people were very excited to see this being captured. And in terms of how we use to preserve the use of language, which is very important, the use of language, who we are, where we come from, how music influence culture and how culture influence music. There was like an experience thing. It was so exciting to hear people being or celebrating me more than anything else, you know, because you don't usually get that. You know, you can create something, you can create an art, and people will like love the art more than the person who did it, but they're like congratulating me more than anything else.
Ebenezer?
I think like the win has always been. I think in most of the cases when you're making this content, it's inspirational and educational at the same time. So you're revealing new information that interests people that people didn't know about, you know. So when someone watches the documentary and they come back to say, I didn't know that, I didn't know that, I didn't know that. So I think my win that I get out of it is that educational element, knowing that you made a difference to someone they didn't know about that yesterday, today they know about that, you know. So that's the win that we actually get out of it. So we've been seeing more of that, but I think then it goes back into to say we I think there's an appetite, you know. There's a bigger appetite. I think people want to know. People are searching for information that we need to we need. So it's inspiring even to us to say, it gives us the energy to say let's keep going, because there's a need for the services and the content that we're actually making, you know. So that positive feedback is fuels their passion and to want to keep going and keep doing it, to educate, inform, and entertain.
So I think where I'm sitting, and I stand to be corrected, I think this new sound of celebrating African content has somehow reunited Africans, because sound is becoming, it resonates to who we are. I mean, from my past, I can resonate with Fela Kuti, I can resonate with Femi, I could resonate with Angelique Kidjo. It's easy to always resonate with people like Gosalificate. And I think right now, the South African sound, which was always neglected, particularly the ancestry type, is finding its presence in the continent. Do you agree with that, Kalumbu?
Yeah, I think we are more united than we are divided. But then I think the media keeps playing the role that we as Africans, we are more divided, which is I don't actually agree with, because I traveled the continent extensively, you know. I mean, the last time I was in Kenya, they were playing DJ Cleo, you know, and they're even playing Maporisa, like in Kenya, you know. As much as when you're down here, they'll play Davido and they'll play wherever type of thing. So across the people, across the social gatherings, across everywhere, we are one people. We celebrate as a music, but I think in the media space, we still want to draw this narrative that I think the people are more divided than they're actually united, you know. But I think even the music, I think the music is a reflection of the times. I think we're moving with the times. So in the 80s, it was a struggle songs that united us. You know, your Brenda Fass's, you find that they're being played elsewhere because the struggle was the same, you know. I think now it's all about celebration of freedom, of independence, So you find Ukom and what is the new thing in Amapiano is being played across even your West Africans who are doing funk and Afro beats. They featuring South African artists that are playing the Amapianos, the Maporisas and them. So I think on the ground we are more united. We have a cross-cultural expression through the music and the arts, but I think we need to push that agenda more by being deliberate in our media to say we are not that far divided. We actually are in it together. Don't divide the continent into West, East, and Southern Africa and so on. But I think we are together because the struggles are the same everywhere. We're just different people, different languages, but the struggle of being Africans is the same. And I think that's what unites us in the music that we say, in the expressions of our artistry or whatever that we do.
We also need to applaud like certain Afro groups like Awamafiki Zolo to do collaborations with different artists. I mean, if you see the music industry have changed a lot, and like you see more collaboration happening compared to the early 2000s or the late 90s. So we need to applaud them. They paved ways as all this sound together, because now we all sound the same. You know, the music has kind of like have a meaty part where like we can resonate to every sound that comes from Nigeria to DRC, from Zimbabwe, and like it sound like Ngati Inzola Endlin, you know.
Are you ready for me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. I think what is that? There's a quote that the nation's culture, the nation's culture resides in the heart and soul of its people. And I think as African, we can agree that that's all it's ever been. And I once asked Mduduzo Makatini, because one of my fascinations with jazz, genre of South African jazz, if you like, is that having been somebody who dabbles in hip hop, is that South African jazz is jazz. You know, when a South African jazz musician plays jazz, and this dates back to the 50s or even before that, you don't say, "Oh, he's trying to play that American genre." And I once asked Biduzo Makatini, like, "But what is it like? What is it like?" Because I'd love to see the end to that hip hop debate about, oh, it sounds American. Oh, it's like, I'd like to one day we get to a point that's South African hip hop where it's South African hip hop. You don't have to get into, yeah, but you sound American. Yeah. And his answer was that, like, he said to me, like, I don't know, bro. Like, all I know is that when I touch the keys, what comes out of me comes out of me. And I think that one element that we can't really quite define is what unites us all. When I was working on a documentary on South African hip hop, there was a point where South African artists collaborated around the continent more than any other genre in South Africa. You had your AKAs, your Kulichana, your Pro, collaborating with artists from Uganda, Nigeria, Kenya. And at that point, as part of the South African Hip Hop Awards, my argument was that, like, I think we're at a time where hip hop has played a far much bigger role in uniting the continent more than politician and religion has done. And that was my argument. And the point really is it's music. It transcends genres. So for as long as we African, music will reverberate with our veins and genes in so many ways. Which is why for me, it's so painful the minute we get to that debate of the cultural sound on radio. People want to listen to mainstream music and whatnot, and that's gonna That's been my contentious argument over the past 10 years. It's like, whether it's Madosini, whether it's Mbuzo Makatini, whether it's BCUC, whether it's Urban Village, the day somebody give them that platform on radio, they'll be as big as all these other genres. You know, the other thing that you mentioned, Tabitha, said, like, for me personally, when you asked about the audio, I'm not worried because also it's about time. I don't know. Sometimes the universe chooses. You know, you have artists who struggle for 10 years before they become big. You have a song that's been there like forever, and at some point it becomes this big sound more than any other genre. And working with most of, like, for me it's cultural and soul artists. That's how I label them, because I think soul for me resonate more than all the other ones. Is that, like, I don't know, maybe it's just a matter of the right time, because I know I lived through a time where if you told anybody that hip hop is gonna get as big as it is today, they're gonna say you're lying. I lived through a time where if you told them that how it's gonna be as big as it is today, you're probably gonna be told that you're lying. I never imagined a day where you're not gonna hear reggae in South African radio when you grew up with Oyaba and so many South African reggae artists. So I don't know. Maybe it's the way of the universe, it's the way of time. But for me, it's not even about we missing an audience or this cultural that we have that is so rich. People don't relate to it. People are, I mean, like jazz. You have kids. It's like, as much as like it's the reputation is like it's for old people. I've seen kids as young as like 10, 15 playing jazz music. The only reason why we don't know that is because they're not exposed,
Mhm.
and as a result, it creates, so everything is almost like controlled. That's why for me I get frustrated sometimes, because I know this thing can just be flipped within a month, 2 or 6 months, if we wanted to. It's not like people don't like cultural music, or they don't want to listen to Blondie Machene, or whoever. Like, just if we give them the right platform and the right amount of time, whether it's in radio, TV, newspapers, or funding, because sometimes you need money to do these things. I think the audience is there. The audience is just waiting. I've, some of you know DJ Ken Zero at a hip hop concert with 35,000 kids coming to listen to hip hop. He'll play Masatini there, and you'll see the crowd going crazy. And for
Mm.
me, those kind of moments have always reminded me, like, I don't buy into that whole thing. Young people listen to this, old people listen to this radio plays this radio, the oldest only one listening. I don't buy into that. And for those who knows DJ Kenzira, he's proven that so many times. He has a career doing that. He's playing jazz, cultural music, you name it, in the midst of a hip hop audience. And he still gets a positive reaction from the crowd. So,
So, sorry, Tils. There's a comment here from Mahano Mama Bolu. She says she thinks that the large concern should be that broadcasters, besides the SABC, should have a mandate to actually start producing and screening documentaries for cultural social responsibility. And if they could start that movement of broadcasting social responsible content, then the acceptance of what you're referring to, Deleza, will not matter where age is concerned, because of then people will start being more familiar and will start acquiring more content irrespective of age, because of then there's so much exposure. But also there's those platforms that are now allowing documentary musical documentaries in this space. But also I think it then speaks to what Eliza you were saying, to say when people wanted to have Mnet, it was an impossible dream. but now it's one of the leading broadcasters that we have, that is actually also having so much viewership and followership, and content that is resonating with so many different people and different lifestyles. So I think I agree with Mahano on that one. And
If I,
yes,
something, just talking about Makhano, like I once interviewed her 10 years ago, and I'll never forget. I have to mention this, I'll never forget that comment. And we're talking about something similar to this topic. And he said to me, yeah, well, this day and age, if you want to be on TV, you just have to run naked in the middle of the street and be on the 7 o'clock news, right? And
yes,
and nobody can disagree with it. Makhano said that to me.
yes.
And I agree with it. I keep that with me. It's been 10 years now. I'll never forget that comment because it's so true. But for me, what that proves as well is further what she's saying. It's going to take, you understand, like for that clip to be on the 7 o'clock news, it's because somebody decided to put it there, because we live in a space where such content, somebody can decide to put it there. Now, in general, and about music documentary as well, and that's why I get emotional, I get frustrated sometimes, because I'm one person, like in the 20th century, for me, I don't believe in marching anymore. You get my point? Because you're talking about Mnet, I don't believe in marching anymore. The thing about us as black people is that, like, every time we need certain change, we're expected to march and play toy and all of that. But the truth of the matter is, true change come from the top. You know, true change come from the top. We have something right now. We can all agree we have something called white privilege, whichever way you look at it. There's never been in the history of white people anywhere marching demanding white privilege. But
True.
whichever way you define that white privilege, those things were able to achieve on their behalf by the people who were in charge, looking after their interests, right? So if you care about culture, if you care about cultural heritage, it's not going to be Belize or Kalumbu or some Chiranya Kemba or even though cultural activity are going to bring real change. This is a 20th century information age, so they say, where if we have to do it from the ground, we look at another 25 years to 50 years. Whereas it can take one person, like Makhano says, sitting at whether it's at Mnet, SABC, ETV, or whatever channel, to say, from now on, we're going to have a cultural, whatever, a space for cultural and musical documentary on my channel. You get my point? It's going to take that. So, and in that case, we'll get there sooner than later. But having said that, I'm still positive. I'm currently working on a documentary with Sleek about Squatter Camp, right? And I was saying to him, like, after so many years, I've shot so many music documentaries, and with the challenge of trying to put them on TV, I'm still positive and encouraged, because the other day on Netflix, I saw Nasty C documentary on Netflix, and then there was Nadia Nagai, there's Nadia on Showmax. Whichever way they got their forms there, I'm happy for them, because 2 years ago, 5 years ago, such thing didn't exist. So it might not be cultural documentaries, but they're music documentaries. I lived through a space where music documentaries were not even nowhere to be seen on South African television landscape. So we're getting somewhere, you know.
I think so.
And I think just to add on to what Delizo was saying is that making my point that we need to be deliberate about decisions that we make, because, for example, the SABC was started as a propaganda station for the Afrikaner government, you know, and they were deliberate in the content they were pushing out. So they were showing what they wanted to show, to push their agenda, to say this is what it is, and this is the language, this is where it's going. So the whole institution, even of the SABC, was started as a propaganda machine for the government, you know. But I think somehow having worked both as a broadcaster and then both as a creative, we somehow missed the mark when our broadcasters' sole focus became about making a profit, and then their agenda was driven by the advertisers who were buying space for the time. So if you're saying you're playing a Maskandi documentary, the media buyer will say, well, who's watching? So I can't put a Jaguar commercial during the Maskandi time. I can't put a Mercedes-Benz commercial that costs 50,000 during that time because that content does not fit to the kind of market we're trying to get, And then they started dictating to their broadcasters what kind of content must go on so that they can spend money on. So even the content that you see now on your televisions, it's content that the advertiser says, put content about cooking, put content about whatever, because there is Samsung wants to put money, there is Toyota wants to put money. So it is the advertisers' money that are influencing the kind of content that we want to see because they're pushing their own agenda. So until we get to a point where broadcasters can be able to say, we are for the people, we broadcast for the people. We're about nation building, we're about knowledge. So whatever content that we're making to pushing, talking about arts in the township, talking about Maskandi, talk about the Ndebele culture, talk about the Zulu culture. It's about the people watching to gain knowledge, not necessary for an advertiser to make money. If you don't make money, fine. I mean, government is funding this stuff anyway because that's where the taxes are going. So I don't understand why it is too much focus on profit making. So we need to focus on that. I think let's change that. Let's change that mechanics before we get to this.
Can I please just one thing? I think for me, they don't even have to change their structures. I think for me, if most of the funding comes from advertisers and advertisers say we're looking for cooking shows and whatnot, give advertisers what they want. But at the same time, you could also give space to the other section that you say is not making money. If you're serious about your agenda, you could use the very same advertisers with all the money they put on cooking shows and reality shows and whatever shows you want to do to fund those cultural organizations. We look at the West and we've, especially in South Africa, and we've adopted that model when it comes to filmmaking. Listen, there's a Hollywood, then you have the independent section. There's only few genres in Hollywood that makes money and fund the rest of the other filmmakers. You have your Marvel, DC comics, you have your Marvel comics, you have your DC, and you have all the action movies and all that making movies. But at the same time, somebody like Woody Allen get a career. This movie don't make money. They may at most they break even. You have art section. We all know none of those art movies are making money, but somehow the very same studios have made space and preserve space so that they could find a way to fund those movies. So for me, I've always said this, I'm not anti anything. If I don't like cooking shows or these reality shows, I don't watch them. But I'm not going to stop anybody from watching them if I'm being told there's an audience for that. But I'm saying you cannot do that at the expense of the other. And
true.
Why can I say that? Because it's improving all over the world. That's why even corporations, they have their little, what you call it, foundation. Because they know there's spaces where they're going to have to spend money without making any money. I mean, when we do this, we know very well we're at a space where, as things stand, those cultural activities don't make money within those TV space and radio spaces, relatively speaking, right? But if you care and if you understand that it's important that we preserve and document this culture because it's necessary. And I'm gonna use another film school example. As much as like your Marvel and action movies make money for Hollywood, when you go to film school, any film school around the world, nobody will ever pull up an action movie and do a whole lecture and teach you about. They're gonna put out all these art movies. So you gotta ask yourself, why would all these movies that don't make money are being used as a base and template for teaching kids around the world to make movies? Because culture is very important. Because you gotta understand yourself. You gotta preserve that culture. They use those movies that have preserved that culture to teach kids how to make movies. When you're done, you can go and make your action movie. So
I agree.
We gotta find a way to fund that it doesn't make money.
So when you're talking about being deliberate, and when you're saying, Kapisa, we need to be deliberate about the content that we produce and spaces which we broadcast them on, it instantly reminded me of Bantu Station. There's this place called Bantu Station in the Maretia, owned by Kwena Mukwena, Steve Kwena Mukwena. And that spoke to the exact being deliberate as you were expressing, because the Bantu Station was so deliberate on cultural activism and on Pan-Africanism as well, in celebrating one's culture, in celebrating one's language, in celebrating one's music and food. And when you're being deliberate, you can't ignore, but also think of the Yovel's Diners Club, Kosenza, because then that movement is deliberate to say he's only doing dining for African and Pan-African food preservation and culture and celebration. It's becoming also now a tourist attraction. But it's I think I agree with you, is that it's not deviating from your mandate of you want to achieve, no matter how long it takes to be recognized or to be appreciated. You just do your own thing and you become deliberate and you keep to your values, because I think once you don't shy away from your values and your beliefs, then every other thing becomes secondary, because of then your values become your primary focus on what is it that you want to achieve.
True.
So that social responsibility for me then is driven by the values outside of anything else that can ponder its success or its failures. Yeah.
No, yeah, it's true. Then I think this way, even the guys from arts and culture, from your NAVFs, you guys yourselves, GFC, you need to be able to say, we are deliberately putting money towards the content that creates that cultural activism. It might not retain profits like money or box office, but for the values of what it's doing to society, this is what it's going to do. Because as I've said, I've worked both as a broadcaster, so I was on the other side. Because with the structure of the SABC, the way it was created was that SABC 1 and SABC 3, they are the commercial channels of SABC. So they make money. They have all these shows about top billing where people spend money and whatnot. Their profits they make, they subsidizes SABC 2 because it becomes a sort of like a cultural preservation platform. Then they can put money towards the documentaries and whatever. Similar to the radios they have, because you have 5FM and Metro, which are the commercial channels where they put all this money into it, and then the profits they make, they can put onto other indigenous stations that do not make money. So they are able to be carried. They are able to be subsidized with this big machine that actually creates money. So I think if we can create that kind of foundation, and then we keep that going, where you can go to the arts and culture, and then they don't ask unnecessary things about profits, and because you are doing it for the heritage and cultural preservation, to create a content that you can feed onto the mainstream. And I think maybe that's a much better way to go, and to look at it, how we can find solutions way forward.
I think for me.
So can I just read this one comment from one of our viewers? Shalima Mkongi says, we need to think of new ways of distributing content. We can't wait. We need to do it ourselves. And then Mahano again is saying, going back to the music of being a calling, is there a common thread that you had all, as filmmakers, chose to direct these documentaries because of they're not making much music? Fanny, can you think of those thread to say, the deliberate thread of saying what would be common about these musical documentaries, knowing that also they are not making money and you want to continue doing this work?
I mean, what we personally do is it's outstanding work, and we're not doing it because we are bored, number one, and number two is we're trying to preserve something that it's gonna last. It's like it's gonna last forever. It can be 10 years, can be 20 years. The next generation can still relate to it. People can look into the archive and get one of our work, and they can kind of like sample the music as well. I mean, talking about the common thread within all of us. I mean, like Deliza is doing like your hip hop music, is doing what do you call this, Abadala, your spiritual journeys, spiritual music. Mine is also through jazz spiritual. So everything is kind of ties together. So I don't think someone in someone from Limpopo can relate to it. Someone from Botswana can relate to it. Someone from Lesotho can relate to it. So it's an ongoing thing that we all do.
So do you think that, sorry, do you think that the ancestry music, do you think that audiences find healing in it because of it's tied both ways, because of then your Bobby Magena is finding healing as he does his thing. Busim Hlongo found healing in what, but then the recipients, which is ourselves, from viewers, from comments, from feedback which you've received, do people also find healing?
Music is a food of soul, eh? We heal in different ways. I mean, we connect to different sound of music. I mean, if you listen to Usim Flongo or you listen to Taniswa Mazwai, you'll find something that you can resonate with, something that connects with, like genre of music, like your hip hop, there will be something that someone can connect with, someone can resonate with as well, something that comes from that sound. Someone is trying to tell us something that is going through, and that can resonate with you, that you can connect with.
I think. Can you just quickly go? I thought of something when you escaped that question here, Amakhan.
What is the common thread for you choosing this particular genre?
Mine is ambitious. It sounds ambitious. For others, it sounds ambitious. I think for me, I said this in the beginning. My motivation as a filmmaker is pretty much inspired by the South African artists that I've seen, that I've shot, that some of them I came to grow with. I think besides the issue of cultural preservation and cultural pride, we're missing one simple thing. I've traveled across the continent a bit, and I think South Africa, I said to be corrected, is probably one of the only genres, one of the only countries where music genres have industries. Okay, there's a gospel industry, there's a hip hop, there's house. Now there's my piano, there was storm, or there's storm. You know, you can name it. Everything turns into an industry, and by industry, we're talking about generation of financial accomplishments, and as well as like creating wealth for each other, or riches for now, because it's not wealth, right? And nowhere else in the continent do you have that. As much as like there's music in the continent, you'll find that for most cases, it'll be like the indigenous sound that it's always just one sound that's kind of like an industry. For instance, Nigeria, right? Nigeria, if you're not part of the Afrobeat, I doubt you can earn a living. Most Nigerian jazz artists are based here. because they might have jazz artists, but they don't have an industry. The same goes with hip hop. They have hip hop artists in Nigeria, but there's no industry. Casper can be a millionaire here and AK and whoever by doing hip hop here. So for me, it has always translated to that story of the underdog. Like, just like we had Nelson Mandela here, who was one of the most elite politicians of this century, I continuously ask myself, why is that? And that's why, funny, I don't just document hip hop.
No, I know. I know you do a lot. So
that's what it's and I hope because for me it's gonna get us to the next level. We envy Americans so much. Let's just be honest. Like, and I think like for me, we have the potential as a country to transform that music culture and heritage into a currency that can be bigger than the gold and the mines that are about to get depleted. In the next century, we might be a country where our GDP can come from arts and culture. You know, you have your black coffee. We just had what's his name, Master KG. Our music resonates with the rest of the world, and there's something that just happens. I can't explain it.
True.
This was just got signed by some jazz label in the US there.
Yes.
You get my point? So imagine if you have 100, 200, 2,000 South African musicians making earning a living around the world. How much currency is that coming back to the country? And for me, on the flip side, that's part of my motivation. It's like, while we're looking at the gold and all these other things that we've relied on as a country for the past century, in the next century, where is this thing gonna come? And for me, art and culture has been there. I mean, like, there's no bigger figure in this country like your Kaifa Semenya, Miriam Makeba, and Brayu and that generation. They did it under all the most depressing circumstances. We can do it better. We can grow. You get my point? And for me,
yes,
go back to my country. That's what drives me. It's like my view. I've always said this. We have these debates in the industry about how to make South African film industry viable. I'm like, the day we start behaving like musicians, South African musicians, for me, the same way they did it, Kwaito did it, Jazz did it, what is it, Soul, Afro Soul did it, you know, Nama Piano did it. They didn't just wake up yesterday and became big. These kids have been grinding for the past 10 years in their shack, bedroom there. But I don't know what drove them. I don't know if they knew they were going to get here. And I feel like as an industry, we don't have that drive. We don't have the drive where, you know, for me, I've shot so many music documentaries sitting on my hard drive. And I still wake up every day to go and shoot someone with no budget, no funding, no nothing. And it's not because I'm crazy or what, but because I have that drive of, and I've seen so many of them, of those musicians, like one way or the other, it's gonna pay off. You get my point? And I think as filmmakers, we need to start thinking. Vincent did it with Jovicho.
With Jovicho.
You know, whatever problems that he inherited after that. But I saw that thing when we did Voma back in 2006. He was gonna do the music documentary now, which he actually we were gonna do it together, and then it didn't happen. But then he shot it, and then I saw it when it was like a 10-minute pilot, and now here we have Jovicho, but it, and I think that's why him as well is so obsessed with music or Kalau in particular, you know. And, then, and I told him this. I've learned, for me, besides music, I've learned that drive from him. I've seen him saying, "I got this idea," and he calls me the next day and it's, "Let's go and shoot it." And that's how I personally ended up with so many. And for me, that's that. You want to talk about cultural heritage and whatever that we have as a nation. That thing, that cloudy thing, it lives within those musicians, and I wish we could all have it, you know, because musicians don't mind starving. I've seen they starve. But you see them shining right now, but you have no idea what they went through, and they've never been scared of striving just to pursue that goal. I'm not even gonna call it a dream because the goal. Somehow they always knew they're gonna get there, and I try to
Okay.
remind myself that
So,
I can be there.
Okay, Tabeleng, you on?
Is the session over or?
No,
Have we lost
no.
Tabeleng?
We lost Tabeleng. Oh, she's coming back.
I think the session is over.
She's coming back.
Yo, Ace of Spades.
yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I was about to
Okay.
continue. 'Cause I got a big mouth.
I'm here.
Okay.
You were saying, Tabeleng?
So
Can
I'm
I
saying
continue?
last two questions because we are pressed for time.
Yeah.
Are you guys working on any collaborations with productions from the continent, pushing the same musical documentaries that one could look into? Are there any co-productions you are busy with?
Nope, not on my side.
I am, but without diverging most of the details. There's a music documentary. So it's a reggae documentary. It's gonna be a feature music documentary. They're remaking the they're remaking one of the biggest record labels in the country. They're remaking the songs of the great reggae artists. I don't know if I'm allowed to divulge all the information, but what's
Okay,
gonna
but
be
there is
happening
something coming soon.
yeah. So that what part of the plan they're gonna be going across the continent to get the likes of Salif Keita and Soldo to remake those reggae songs, and
Okay.
it's
Kalumbu?
still at an early phase.
We're working on it's not more a co-production, it's more of a collaboration. Because like the theme of the theme of the documentary we're working on is called music time, so we're looking at how music is a reflection of the times that we're in. So we're just looking at the different parts of in terms of Africa to say what is happening there. The sounds that you're hearing is a reflection of time. So we're doing a reflection of going back to the 80s, of saying from the time of Fellas to the time of Lucky Dube's here, the time of Oliver Mtukudzi. They were more like struggle kind of songs, to the Papa Wembas in the DRC, and then moving on to the 80s. So the music moved with the times to the political struggle songs, to the independence, the Rwandas, the Angolas, the big superstars. And now the music is actually reflecting on what is happening on the continent, from the Afro beats and the Amapianos that we have now, reflecting all the times. So what's the future of is music only about the past, or are we trying to move into the future? So it's more of just examining that through collaboration with different people I have in different parts of Africa. So we're working on that and then trying to see what can come out of it. But yeah, the magic will come out soon enough.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to just give you an opportunity just on your last remarks because now we have to close our session. Deleza, would you like to take you through our last departing words for our session?
Well, I think for me, this was a great conversation I've been having. these conversations for quite some time now. But I think having all said what I've said, it the future looks positive, and I think for those who are doing the same thing and they're like struggling and they think it's not gonna happen, yeah, the only reason why I can still wake up in the morning to go and do this is the belief that I know it's gonna happen at the level that we think it should happen. So we just need to keep doing what we're doing.
Okay.
Okay. And then, Fanny?
Okay. I strongly believe that we need more platform like this, platforms that can be open and talk about music, not only indigenous music, but music as a whole, and also the opportunities to kind of like engage with the industry, to engage as well with the broadcasters, to engage with the record labels, because sometimes it's hard for us to kind of go to document some of the artists because they've signed with big record labels and they'll want certain things to be done, and also to we're talking about music rights, uh, for us to access the artists to document them, there'll be a clause that says so and so doesn't want their artists to be documented because they have their internal staff that deals with that issue of documenting them. Uh, but I think having platform like this to engage the record labels, the industry as a whole, the broadcasters will kind of give us more opportunities to create more content on music documentaries.
Nice one. Okay.
Um, I think this was a good conversation, just getting an insight of what's happening and what's going on. I think we have opportunities to always let's aspire to find new ways of doing things. And I think one of the things I'm always um, uh, is to say, let's be more deliberate with what we're doing. So other than money or from organizations that are looking for funding, I think there's a bigger part of legislation that we can also play. I think arts and the culture needs to be in schools. Why it's not being taught in schools? I think we need to make arts and culture cool. I think we need to make our languages cool. We need to make our heritage cool, um, so that it becomes like pop culture, so that it becomes part of us. It doesn't become something we celebrate once in a year, like Heritage Day or Women's Day or Christmas or something. It must be like every day. I think we're doing some amazing work. I think we're doing some amazing stuff with my colleagues here, Delisa, and Fanny, and so I think they just keep on keeping on. Yeah, and yeah, we'll and keep pushing those boundaries, and then we'll find a way. We'll find a way,
Yeah, no,
and
I
push
agree.
forward.
I agree. I think
I'm just I'm just reminded of something important. Talking about what you
okay.
no, this is important, right?
Of
Uh,
course.
just on a positive note,
Yes.
and I know a whole lot of kids who call me, they want to start doing this. I just don't want it to sound to be despondent. Actually, SABC did have their own seminar where talking about industry engagement, where they had filmmakers with musicians and the broadcaster to try and iron out some of these sessions. And I also said on a seminar with jazz musicians and videographers and photographers. And funny, one of the things that was mentioned was that you talk about record company contracts and whatnot, is that artists need to start the same way their contract speaks to music. They need to start looking at adjusting those contracts so they can accommodate video and photography. So it looks positive. So then
Mhm.
next time when you're engaging with an artist, there's a legal whatever engagement, that you're not just running around, man. So there's positive engagement. So for all the kids who are joining now, picking up the camp trying to do this, hopefully your next session, Tabeleng, will just be like rosy. So, yeah.
I think we can never get to a point where we get roses, because for every improvement that happens in every phase of any production of any kind of work, there will always be things that we have to learn from the past. And because of we have that drive, things will never be perfect, and we'll never get to a point where we feel that we have reached the ceiling, because the more we want to develop and the more we are creative and the more there's new things that are coming our way, it pushes that urge to want to do good, but that is driven by energies and experiences that we have. But I think one of the theme that I think kept on coming throughout the conversation, I think that the theme that came out is not being apologetic about what we are trying to create, but also being deliberate in the content which we are also trying to push, and being able to do what we can do as part of cultural activism from our side. And we hope that the pieces will join, and there will be better exposure for this content that we are trying to create. But also what came out was that this musical documentary and cultural ancestry was not celebrated as much. It's finding audiences, it's opening up. So I think those are the things that came out. But also I think it's always been having the drive to push and working and doing more work. And someday, one day, somebody will buy it. And I think that the theme around pushing an agenda of having more decision makers also being deliberate about making this decision of promoting cultural ancestry is something that will help us preserve what is deemed to be part of South African culture and part of Pan-African culture as well in its entirety. So I think, gentlemen, thank you so much for the lovely conversation. And I think you never stop thinking. There's always things that one thinks of, which will obviously come later, and we think, oh, we didn't touch on that. But I do apologize if there's something that we had missed out. Thank you so much for making time to share with us through this Arts Alive film masterclasses. Thank you to the Gauteng Film Commission, obviously, for the opportunity, to the City of Johannesburg, to Arts Alive, to Ritual Stores for facilitating this online session. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon. And let's keep going and continue the conversation. And yes, being our own cultural activists to make sure that we are promoting South Africa and what it is and what it can be in the future. And thank you so much, because there is hope. There is hope. And South Africa belongs to all of us, and we are the ones that can make South Africa better if we can just all do what we need to do individually, and we'll get it right somehow. And thank you so much. Enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
Peace out. Thank you.